So welcome to the show, Chris. Thank you so much for coming and being my first guest.
It's an honour, Daniel. It really is a real honour.
Well, it feels like an honour for me because like this time, so we first met probably 15 months ago. It was the start of 2023. I'd just been made redundant, and I was flailing around trying to figure out what the hell I was going to be doing with my life, with my purpose, with the skills that I'd acquired over sort of 15 years working in content and marketing. And you were the voice of reason, the steady, calm person adult in the room, really, who'd been there and done it. So it felt right that you should be the first guest, and we could look back at the experiences that you had that kind of helped me sort of forge this path. So, like, I want to start by kind of looking at your history and journey to where you are now. So, what was kind of your first proper job, would you say?
Well, before we kick off, I'd love to say that actually it's been an honour being on your journey with you as well. So, and the transformation has been absolutely incredible. So that's
I was starting from zero.
That's that said. God, what was my first proper job? I suppose my first proper job was post university, where I got a job working for Hewlett Packard, HP, I think, as most people know them now, in a marketing role. So when I left uni, I gave myself 6 months to get a job in marketing. Otherwise, I'd have gone down the financial and accounting route.
Oh, thank God that didn't happen.
Thank God that didn't happen, exactly. So, yes, my first job was consumables marketing manager for Hewlett Packard. So all the supplies and consumables is the most profitable part of HP. So all the toner cartridges. Back in the day, it was floppy drives and things like that. Showing my age here, but it was really interesting because it was what is now traditionally old school marketing. It was a direct mail catalog driven business followed up with telesales team.
God, that feels old hat, but in some ways that kind of direct approach feels to be sort of making a resurgence, either replicated on social media, or certainly some of the agencies I work with are exploring direct mailers. So where did you go after HP? Because I know you spent a good chunk of time at Microsoft, didn't you?
I did. HP. I was with HP for 4 years. Went on their sales training program, which at the time was second to Xerox. And to be honest, that was just amazing. That gave me such a strong sort of foundation. So, I worked for a small HP reseller. Then I worked for Philips Media, again managing a telesales team within that role, and then finally landing in Microsoft, where I started off in the education group and then moved into the small business group. Although I've been working for sort of IT tech companies, I'm not a techie. Never have been. Never will be. It was always sales, marketing, business development, strategic partnership type roles, and
that explains a lot from what you're doing now. So talk me through what you're doing with small businesses then, because obviously for those of you that don't know you, like what you do now, this feels very much in keeping with. So what were you doing at Microsoft with small businesses?
So Microsoft's number of things really. One, it was working with influencer bodies that had a reach into that small business world. So by that I mean things like the Chamber of Commerce, Federation of Small Business, and we used to run a task force that worked with those influencer organizations to help them understand the role of technology. But that also got me into a lot of different projects and things that were going on. So we did a project that actually launched an accreditation for IT consultants, and that was a government-backed project, and into training and accreditation. I also worked on a project to deliver the first small business website for what was then the Department of Trade and Industry, so a government body. So that's got me into the whole web digital sort of space.
Yeah. So then from there, then you've sort of picked up working side by side in collaboration with small businesses and a sort of sales and marketing hat on, and then you went from working in this giant corporation to starting your own agency. Is that like how did that kind of come about? What was that transition, and what sort of made you think that there was, you know, an opportunity there for you know, for a new agency, or you know, a market opportunity to capitalize on?
Yeah, it was a bit of a journey to get there, to be honest.
Okay.
These things are never a straight path. You know, I'd sort of had my fill with the corporate world and became what I call a corporate refugee, which you will resonate with. This is where our sort of stories cross a little bit. You know, coming out of that corporate world and then going, now what? What am I going to do now? So there were a couple of wilderness years where I was doing different roles. I ran the UK arm for an Australian business that was it was a website development tool for small businesses, the forerunner of Wix and Squarespace, effectively.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was at the rise of Google. So I was getting more involved with digital marketing, as well as sort of, you know, the strategic side of web development. And the more I got into that, I started to work with, because as I said, I was never a techie, but working as a digital marketing consultant, so freelance world, the resulting output tended to be, I can drive traffic to your site's rubbish, it won't convert, waste of money. So that tended to be a light bulb moment. Can you do something about my website? So it was strategically yes, technically no. So I partnered with somebody that was a techie web development, application development business, and he did all my hard techie stuff. And then at the same time, I worked with a brand print agency, and all her clients were saying, "Can you do website and digital for us?" And she didn't know where to start. So we worked loosely like that for a couple of years, just you know, referring business between us. And then I went, "Now, hang on, this is crazy. You know, we all get on, complementary businesses. Why don't we come together as one business?"
Yeah.
And that was when, you know, we formed a full service agency. I hate the term full service agency now, but that's what we did, because we could generate.
Why do you hate it?
Because it tends to be all things to all people. People use the term full service because they think they have to be able to offer everything to everybody, as opposed to really focusing in on what they're good at. We've now get full service digital agency. You know, it's just a term that gets bandied around that actually I don't think, you know, it's more an industry term than it is a client term. But we genuinely could do it because we had expertise in strategy, brand, print, design, web, and digital marketing. So yeah, I sort of fell into agency world rather by accident more than design.
So that's interesting. That's interesting. You've sort of taken to it like a duck to water though, and like the work that you do now with Agency Local. I know we're going to talk more about that a bit later on. Like, is you're sort of deeply within it. Did once you kind of formed as this agency, did the agency life sort of sink its claws into you a little bit? Did it start to, or was it actually always attractive, but you just kind of sort of fell into it? I'm intrigued.
It was always attractive. If I think back, when I was at Microsoft, we had huge promotional budgets, and so I used to work with agencies, but that was being client side. So yes, the whole creative space is something that I love. I wouldn't say I'm overly creative myself. I'm not a designer. I couldn't design my way out of a paper bag. But the environment that fosters creativity. I love the idea of being able to think outside the box, and that's what creative thinking. I'm probably more in love with creative thinking than with the actual creativity itself. But yeah, so and the other thing about agency world that I really grew to love was I found it the most collaborative world than anything else I'd ever worked in before. People were willing to help you, people were willing to support you. You'd have conversations and they were always sort of honest and open and raw, if you like. And that was great. That I loved that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 15 months into, well, when we initially started speaking, I thought that I would grow an agency. I've since shifted my thinking. I think partly because the market feels quite tough at the moment, and there seems to be a squeeze on budgets, and then you've got generative AI eating away at, I think, a lot of, particularly in my sort of target market in terms of tech brands and what have you. I think there's a real appetite, or certainly a big test and learn thing going on in terms of generative AI and chopping budgets away and from what would be freelance / agency to, creating stuff in-house with ChatGPT, for example. I'm not a huge fan of it, but there we are. But like, since the last kind of 12 to 15 months, I spent a lot of time doing the networking thing, speaking to other freelancers and agencies, and it is very much it's a community, which I wasn't expecting. I thought that there would be some pointy elbows, cannibalizing, trying to take over the market and steal all the work going, but actually, like, that just isn't the case at all. People are very much a case of, right, my plate's full. How can I help others, or how can I support others to get to this point, which was a real welcome finding when you do get made redundant. And like you sort of said, you have those wilderness moments of flapping around like crazy, to find that particularly at the smaller end, I guess it might be different at the top end, but particularly at this sort of size and scale, like, there is definitely a supportive undertone to all of that.
Well, there is a supportive undertone, and it needs to be there, especially at the moment, because, as you say, things are tough out there. Normally, we're in a marketplace of abundance. I think businesses need marketing, whatever flavor that takes, and quite often, a lot of agencies tend to be on the smaller side, and therefore dealing with small to medium businesses, and there are a lot of them. But when things get tough, it's a time for people to really look at what they're doing. And as we saw with the pandemic, when things got really tough, people changed, people pivoted. That word pivot became something that in mainstream, but
if you weren't pivoting, what were you doing?
well, exactly. But it's but what we did in that time was made decisions really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the pressure, because it was, one day it was there, wasn't there, one next day it was, and then we had to change. Whereas now, at the moment, although it's tough, it's like a gradual tough, and it's been tough for a while, and we're still expecting it to, the green shoots to appear and the floodgates to open again. And we went into this year with high hopes that everything was going to change in 2024. It hasn't. It hasn't. It's still, as I said in a post today, the only certainty is uncertainty. And, it is tough out there, and it's time to, for people to look at, leveraging what they do with their existing clients, looking to find a niche to work in, it's making those decisions and then actioning them. It's all those things that people need to do.
So
gone off track a little bit there, but
we have. Yeah, I was just gonna.
But you will find within agency world there are lots of communities where people will support each other, and that is what is absolutely key, especially in this environment when it is tough.
Yeah, and I know that's I know it's a topic that's close to your heart and what you're out there championing, and I know that we will dive into more specifics on that a little bit. I just want to get back to the agency that you've fallen into with your two other business partners. So there's the three of you, and how did you find? I mean, I guess you at different times you probably didn't have to worry so much, but you grew pretty steadily. So how long were you going for? What was the drive? How were you kind of looking to expand? Like, what was those kind of years like?
They were brilliant. I really enjoyed them. We grew steadily. We weren't huge. We were sort of 16 people at our height, which in agency world is reasonable. And I learned so much, and during those years, and we were running the agency for over 10 years. So, it wasn't all plain sailing at all by any manner of means. We had to make decisions quickly. We had to change what we were doing, over time. But, building a team, having, actually producing output that we were proud of, that customers were proud of, and that delivered results was what drove me and the business. So I learned so much on that journey. It was a brilliant time, and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today without that.
Who was your what sort of clients were you servicing? Was it across the board, or did you have a niche that you worked within?
Yeah, I always used to be very proud of saying we are sector agnostic.
Yeah.
Which is not the advice I give to people now. But there are different ways of niching. To be honest, we sort of niched within a region. We were, I would say 80% of our clients were within 30 miles of where we were based in Buckinghamshire. So, we got to know, and we dealt with small and medium businesses. And personally, I enjoyed the variety of going into a different business, trying to understand the mechanics of that business, that marketplace, and then working with them to develop, a marketing solution that would actually deliver results and move their business forward.
Who was your favorite client?
No,
it's been a while. You can shout them out now.
Who was my favorite client? God, we had so many.
Or your favorite project, or did you find that actually, like, in terms of what you delivered, like a lot of the packages were similar? I know you said that
no,
you were not.
It was the variety that I liked. So we did a lot of work with UTC, University Technical College, up in Aylesbury. Loved working with them because they were a very new concept. It was not only marketing into education, but it was getting the whole concept across. We worked closely with them for 5 years.
That's a long relationship.
Oh, everything was built on relationships. It always is. The project that gave me the most, that sticks in my mind, that with the most sort of satisfaction, was we won the opportunity to rebrand Thames Valley Air Ambulance. So
That's cool.
Thames Valley Air Ambulance.
Did you get to fly in one?
No, didn't get to fly in one.
How can you brand it if you don't know the experience?
Well, thing is, I'd have had to come off my bike, been seriously injured, to have had the opportunity to fly in one. So I actually, to be honest, I wouldn't necessarily.
I'm not wishing you ill either.
No, thank you. But that was really interesting, because everybody thinks air ambulance is about the speed of taking the patient to the hospital, right? It's not. What air ambulances do, they bring the hospital to the patient. So that was incredible. So we rebranded them. To be honest, we didn't have a lot to work from. Their original logo was like a 1970s clip art helicopter behind some clouds. So, but we brought them into the modern era. We gave them a medical look and feel. And then when we launched the rebrand, it was at the same time as they changed all the livery on their helicopter as well to match the new brand. Nice. They got a new helicopter, and they had a big press day to launch the fact they got a new helicopter and the new branding. And we were there on the balcony it was actually at a golf club, and the helicopter came over the hill and landed on the designated area, the green where they could land.
Not a batting green. Oh my God, I bet the members were livid.
But seeing your work coming to fruition and just flying in, literally, was
that's cool.
Amazing. It was so cool.
That's cool. I can't imagine too many marketers can profess to having their rebrand and their work arriving on a helicopter. So look, you took this agency through 10 years, you said, and then through an exit as well. And I know that every exit's different in terms of buyouts or acquisition or what have you. But I wonder if you could just talk through that journey, because I'm sure there are others listening that are considering their agency journey or considering what they want to do. And there's always that feeling of building something to a point where you can leave it or you can take equity from it. So I just wonder if you can talk about was there always in the plans, with as an exit always there?
It's the dream, isn't it? That's the ending that you want, because there's only ever 3 endings to a business. You either shut it down, you give it away, or you sell it. And so it was always our ambition to sell the agency. That was always the longer term goal. And I need to sort of caveat this, that I actually lost my 2 partners along that journey as well. So, although we started off with 3, it ended up with just me. Unfortunately, they had to step back for health reasons, which was a real pity, to be honest.
Are they all right now?
Sorry? Oh, they're fine. Okay? Yeah, they're fine. But their journeys have gone in different directions. But so that change was one of the drivers that sort of, for me personally, that went, okay, maybe now's the time. And ideally, if that is your goal, then you need to be working towards that, putting things in place, systems, processes, people, etc. And we did already have a lot of that in place, I would say. but I wasn't actively looking to sell the business, but an opportunity came along. So, as you do, you get curious. I'll follow the white rabbit. And it the more I followed the white rabbit and got down the rabbit hole, the more I thought, okay, yes, this is probably the right time for me and the right time for the agency. So, and fortunately that went through, and we culminated in selling the business in 2018, and I left at the beginning of 2019.
So how did the opportunity arise? You sort of say that it materialized. Did someone approach you, or was it just, how did that work?
It was a shout out in a agency community that I was part of at the time. Somebody just put it out there. They were representing other businesses, and they were saying, we're looking for a digital agency, which is what we were then, because we pivoted and changed from this full service thing down to the core of digital. Anybody interested? Let's have a discussion. So I put my hand up, and we had a discussion, and it went on from there.
What were some of the stickiest or the most difficult parts about doing that, about going through the exit? Just so, like, what were the things that needed to be? You talked about procedures and the operation side of it and everything being in place. What were the kind of key requisites that they wanted to know and see?
They wanted to know around the client base. I mean, it always starts with sales. What was the current run rate? What was the monthly recurring revenue, the MRR? Were clients contracted in? If so, for how long? So there's that. It takes away a lot of the doubt if people are contracted in. So it makes you more attractive as an agency. It was having the right, having good processes in place, having a good brand, good reputation. They count for a lot. To me, one of the most important things was the people. We always pride ourselves in having good people doing a good job, and whatever was going to transpose, they needed to be looked after and taken care of. And again, people look at the assets that you've got in people and their knowledge and their capability, and that's a big part of what they're looking at.
So is it still operational in some way, shape or form?
No, not as such.
No.
It got incorporated into the agency that bought us. They ran the brand for a while and then consumed it within their agency.
How did that feel, seeing the brand go?
I'd moved on by then.
Okay.
To be honest,
fair enough.
This was sort of a couple of years later. My direction, my focus was completely elsewhere. But whenever I see it or whatever, there's a huge sense of pride over what we built. And certainly if I go networking around, meet people around here, people always remember the brand and the the agency and everything, which is really cool. That
is nice. So you talked about being elsewhere and moving on. So was that when we moved into agency local? Was that your next call, or did you take some time out and regroup?
I sort of took a bit of time out, and I started to actually doing some interim marketing director type roles The fractional CMOs, the balances now,
the popular one now.
But so that was all client side, which I hadn't been for a long time because I'd been agency side, and I enjoyed it to an extent, but it's that variety that I like, and sticking with one company with one product, just focusing on that, I struggled a little bit with having that focus. But it was invaluable for me because I was client side for agencies that we were dealing with, whether that be, film agencies or, advertising agencies, Amazon agencies, e-commerce agencies, whatever. And it just opened my eyes to how much help a lot of these people needed, because the way they were presenting themselves, the way they were pitching, the way they engaged, the way they communicated, on the whole, it just wasn't good. So I thought there's an opportunity here, and it sort of fell in line with the fact, my journey of running the agency, growing the agency, and then the journey of selling the agency. And to be honest, in that, whatever it was, 9 to 12 months going through that sales process, I learned so much. That, I thought, well, I'm sure I've got some value to give back here. So that's when I sort of moved more into looking at the one-to-one, consulting, mentoring, coaching, whatever label you want to put on it. But Agency Local was actually born out of running an event here in Buckinghamshire. I put on an event just to see if there was an appetite to get local marketing agency owners together. When I was running the agency, I was part of the agency collective, and I got a huge amount of value out of that. But not everybody wanted to travel into London. So I put on an event locally. First event I put on, 25 people came.
That's pretty good.
It was
pretty good for a first event. Yeah.
It was. And it was a mixture of, networking for agency owners. So, best will in the world, you weren't going to get, utility salesmen and all the rest, other people coming up.
No offense to all the utility salesmen listening.
Exactly. Yeah. I am a customer, actually. Yeah. So anyway, but then we also had a couple of talks about an aspect of running an agency business, and people seem to enjoy it. They liked the event, and I started running those every 2 months. So, and that's where Agency Local came from. And that really was the start.
Yeah. So just give us a quick rundown of like what it is now, because it's so much more than that now. I think the Slack community that's operational has got sort of 400 plus people in it. There's monthly huddles, or are they 2 weekly?
They're monthly now.
They are monthly, and there's a whole host of other bits and pieces. So like, just give us a quick description, because then I think it'd be good to then go through your new direction, or where things are headed for you now.
Yeah, just in order to explain what we were doing, where Agency Local went from running local events, the obvious next step was to create like a community, a membership community. And then, of course, COVID hit. So that just changed everything. Agencies went into free fall, needed as much help as they could get. And B, everything went online. So it didn't matter where you were, because local was wherever you were. So that they would sort of, COVID had a huge impact on what I was doing. And it meant actually that, instead of relying on face-to-face, I could be doing a lot more online. So we started what were called Ask the Expert webinars. They were webinars initially around COVID issues, how to furlough staff, where to get grants from, how to manage your cash flow. And then gradually they went into more mainstream business topics. We started to run groups, we called them Better Together groups. And they were really focusing on, where are you now, and where do you want to get to? And they metamorphosed into the 90-day planning groups,
of which I'm a member,
which you're very familiar with.
Full disclosure, 40 minutes in.
Because it was, okay, you're here now. You need to plan your way out of where you're at, and people needed that accountability. We started to run online networking. They were called the huddles, and we were doing them every 2 weeks. We now do them once a month, and we then, sort of post-pandemic, things sort of changed again, because some people wanted to go back to face-to-face, some people didn't. Some people got busy, some people didn't. So the appetite for a lot of the webinars and online learning, if you like, were started to tail off. And I had a sort of a realization about how people learn during that period. And a lot of the webinars are brilliant for one thing, giving people knowledge, right? But what I want to be about is about having impact. And the difference between knowledge and impact is action. And quite often you don't get action out of a webinar. You get knowledge. So what we started to do was learning focuses of the month, where people would get the knowledge from short form videos. We'd have a workshop. Okay, what did you learn? What are you going to do? And moving forward. So they'd get the actions, and then we'd meet later on and go, okay, what did you do? Did it work? What were the results? What were your challenges? So a lot more focused, if you like, around output as opposed to just knowledge. And that sort of stuck with me in terms of, what we were doing. So, because the vast majority of agency owners start out life because they have a passion or a learning in something, in a craft.
Yeah.
They're good at what they do. They get clients. They grow, right? But they've never been trained in the commercial or business side of running an agency, and that is where me, Agency Local, really comes into play to support them on that journey.
Yeah, I mean, as the conversations that we had when we first started, when you asked me like things, really obvious questions like cash flow, pipeline, just how are you keeping track of leads, all of that sort of thing. Like at the start of the business, like I was relying on my brain to a large extent, and but now to sort of think back, like just how much more across it, the visibility I have on pipeline, cash flow, where opportunities are coming from, like the split of services, like what I make from certain services and stuff is like, it's wild. It's so far ahead of where I was. And you're right, that I had absolutely no idea, And I don't make any, I'm not shy about relaying that. I really didn't. And like the value I've got from working with you and like from the community at Agency Local has been huge. But you aren't going to be Agency Local for much longer, is that right?
Yep. No, we're not. But what I would like to say is that you recognised the fact that there are things that you didn't know that you needed to know, and that made a big difference. It really does. That moment of realization is absolutely key. But
it was terrifying at the time, though, Chris. Thank you.
Yes.
just how much I didn't know. Yeah, sorry. Carry on.
But yeah, so yes, we're changing yet again. The ability to change and move with the times. What I've realized for quite a while now is that the brand agency local really wasn't really fit for purpose. And if you think about the word local, well, the pandemic took us all online. We've got people in the community from all over the country, some in other countries, that actually it doesn't really fit, and it's more confusing than anything else. People go, well, where's local? Am I local? Yeah. So yeah, middle of last year, I just decided to rebrand. So very, very soon, can't wait. We're going to be called the Agency Adventure, and
I like that.
And because it's a journey, it is an adventure, and everybody's adventure is different. There's no one size sort of fits all. So having decided on the name, we've sorted out the branding last year, the look and the feel. And originally I was just going to sort of rebrand what we were already doing. And then I went, hang on a second. I need to look at what we're doing. This is a prime opportunity to actually repurpose what we're doing and really focus on where we can deliver the most impact out there into the community. So certain things are changing. We're not running as many knowledge events, and really focusing on helping those agency owners that really recognize they need the help and want the help and are committed to actually developing and growing. So the knowledge is there, but it will come within sort of group learning environments. And also I'm really focusing on working one-to-one with agency owners. So I don't call myself a coach or a consultant. I don't like those boxes because they're just two of the things I do. Sometimes it's it's educating, it's training, it's advising, it's consulting, it's motivating. It's all those things. So I call myself a guide. So that fits nicely within the agency adventure, as a guide, helping agency owners to navigate their chosen path. And so the focus is very much around one-to-one, with a whole range of different options there, depending on where people are, again, on their growth journey, really. The second area is looking at masterminds. I think masterminds are, when they're done properly, are hugely powerful. This isn't a let's meet once a week for an hour mastermind. This is a dedicated day a month, working on the business, and that will be part knowledge transfer, but with action oriented around it. It'll be reporting, it will be accountability, and it will be problem solving. And then for the first sort of step into the commercial world really is around 90-day planning. So going on 90-day adventures. That's where expeditions, exactly. So you make you look at the next 90 days and what what things are you going to improve in your agency in the next 90 days? And it's getting people into that routine of actually thinking about their business and thinking how they can improve it and learning along that journey as well.
So are you moving on to a more, obviously sort of focusing on one-to-one, is that also going to switch up? Are you going to provide courses? You talk about impact and action and sort of having, yes, imparting knowledge, but more like driving those kind of action. Is that on the cards, a sort of educational aspect?
Well, the educational aspect. So through the journey of Agency Local, we've built up an excellent relationship with other experts in business disciplines. So what I mean by that is like an expert in finance for agencies, expert in HR for agencies, expert in culture for agencies, marketing for agencies, team building, etc. So, and those experts are available for people that are in any of the Agency Local programs. And they're the ones that will be delivering workshops, knowledge, programs, etc. So we work very much in partnership with our partners to support agencies, whether they're on a guiding program or the mastermind or the 90-day planning. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant because they're part of the community. And you've mentioned the Slack community, which is open to any agency owner. It's free. Just come in, join in.
I'll post a link to that in the show notes for agency owners. There is a rite of passage that you obviously have to do an introduction, tell people who you are and what you do. So there is a small barrier to entry, but not a particularly large one to clear, is it?
No, I wouldn't think so. No, but I just encourage as many people to participate and join in the conversation. The one thing we do run once a month on the Slack group is an expert Q&A. So we'll pick a topic by one of our partners, and it's a 2-hour window where anybody can ask them any question that they've got on their mind. So last week we were talking about YouTube and how agencies can leverage YouTube as a channel. The month before that we were talking about client services and how to develop that. So, and they're excellent.
Yeah, no, they are. I need to dive back into the YouTube one since I'm now entering into that world with these. Chris, thank you so much for your time and coming and having a chat and talking about your journey to agency adventure. We look forward to seeing the rebrand. Do you have a date? Am I putting you on the spot?
No, you are. April. It will be out in April.
There you go.
There we go.
Keep your eyes peeled for that.
I mean, It's really weird because in my head we're already there. I'm so close to it, but of course it's not out there yet.
Well, it's that classic thing of you being
the nod to it here in my background.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, isn't it? You've spent so long living with it. The assumption is it's really hard to get yourself into someone else's shoes and assume that they are not seeing it. Anyway, brilliant. Thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me, Dan.
No worries.